Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're what? Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. And you guys are watching Black Teen News. Sorry, I got tongue tied. Hello, hello. So, we're going to be talking, of course, about the Iowa aftermath, which Trump dominated. DeSantis came in second, Nikki in third, though she's like pretending that she came in second. And Vivek, of course, came in fourth and suspended his presidential campaign. So it paints a very clear picture that Trump will be the nominee. Can he possibly be stopped? I don't know. And I don't know if that was ever kind of open or not. Well, maybe not ever, but as things have been progressing, especially after indictment after indictment after indictment, and the psychology of how that plays on the voters who feel like people feel like Trump was cheated out before. Now they're trying to come against him now. So people need to stand next to him even more now than ever. I don't know if that can be broken between the Trump and the voters, at least not the majority. So we'll talk about all those things going forward, and if anyone has a path and so on. So before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com. It does cost a stream and run my website, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I do very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. Check out different merch that we have available at the store, like this cool goat hoodie. And I also have it in a t-shirt. I do have it in different colors as well. GOAT stands for greatest of all time, if anyone is unaware of that. I have the hoodie. It's super comfortable. And but I do have it in other colors besides white, because people are like, my kids are going to ruin that. So I do have it in different colors. You guys can check that out at blacktnews.com. And I got other stuff as well, other t-shirts and other mugs. Also, please make sure that you guys are leaving your emails for the newsletter, signing up for that stuff. And you guys can see when there's new merch or new articles that drop, videos with different announcements, event announcements, new books, so on. You can find that all at the website, and signing up for emails. I promise I do not bombard with emails. I frankly do not send enough, but I shall do better. I shall do better. So before we jump into Iowa, I want to talk about a really important story very briefly. There was a story that came out, I think last week, about a mother and her children dying while coming into the border. They're crossing the river, and allegedly CBS claimed that they were stopped by the border patrol and like left to drown. And there were some Democrats who were like spreading that around. And I've seen people amplify that on social media and talking about how these Republicans can't possibly be Christians. They would do that because they would do this, and just rhetoric damning anyone who wants a border protected. But the truth is that no one saw that happen. No one was like, oh, there's a mother and some kids drowning. They're not supposed to be there, so let them drown. That didn't happen. Think about it. Do you think that happened? Do you think that happened? And I think people are really pushing that because of, Greg Abbott is like, if they're not going to protect the border, we're going to take it upon ourselves to make sure that the border is patrolled. And so they want to just make everyone look like a monster for trying to secure our freaking nation. But nobody saw the mother struggling and just was like, stand down, let them die. It didn't happen. They didn't witness it. So CBS did issue a retraction. They had originally reported Texas physically barred Border Patrol agents from trying to rescue migrants who drowned, federal officials say. And then there was another one in my 3 migrants drowned near area where Texas has denied entry to federal border agents. And then the update said this story and headline were updated to reflect information shared by federal officials with the Supreme Court on Monday, January 15th. In that filing, the Justice Department said the 3 migrant drownings had already occurred when Border Patrol requested access to Shelby Park to help other migrants, though it did note it was impossible to say what might have happened if Border Patrol had its former access to the area. So it's just journalistic malpractice. It reminds me of the story, was it last year, maybe a year before, when they were saying that Border Patrol was whipping people, and there was a photo on with a Border Patrol agent on a horse, and there was some shallow water, and they were chasing after these black migrants. Maybe they're Somalian. Not sure, but I think that's probably correct. And people are like, oh, they're whipping them. They're whipping these migrants. And they were like horse reins. They weren't whips. And it was clear to people who, I guess, know anything about horses what was going on. And the Biden administration still like entertained it and had an investigation, and they condemned them even though they didn't do anything wrong. But people are so gung-ho on demonizing anyone who wants any sort of border control, even though people on the right and the left, not like talking politically, people in, Congress, talking about the constituents, want this situation taken care of. Like, there's plenty of people who don't deal with it who are like, oh, open borders, walls are mean. But when they're confronted with, oh, well, your kids can't go to school because we are housing these migrants overnight in their school, so you have to do remote learning. They're like, wait a second. There's a clip from the Breakfast Club of them complaining about that, and they're like, well, I understand why they're like, build that wall, So it's pretty nutty. It's pretty nutty. So I just wanted to share that. So people were aware, so you can debunk it when you see that around. People were not just standing and watching them die in the river. Did not happen. Did not happen. And shame on CBS, and shame on some of our elected officials that spread that misinformation. Anyway, Iowa, big night. So I continuously said that I didn't trust the polls. I thought they were a little too inflated. I still think some of the polls with Trump v. Biden don't make much sense when you look into the internals. Like way overperforming with like young people or minorities and stuff. But the Iowa poll obviously came out pretty accurate. Besides, like there was one that came out on Sunday that had Nikki Haley finishing at second and DeSantis like under 20%. That didn't happen. And so Trump performed about where he was supposed to. I guess maybe under, according to some polls, but to get over 50%. And DeSantis ended up getting second place, and Nikki got third place, though she gave her speech and she's like, Iowa, you guys made it clear that this is a 2-person race. No, not really. Because you could say it's a 1-person race with Trump, or it's still a 3-person race. But it ain't a 2-person race that involves you and Trump. That's not a thing. And And I think I just heard another interview. I was listening to Ben's show earlier, and he played a clip. It sounded like she said that she got second, finished second. So I don't know. She seemed a little confused about the results and what it says about her position going in. I think um, Trump will probably win in New Hampshire. I don't know how well she expects to do in her home state. There are rumors that she's actually going to be Trump's VP pick. I don't know if that's true or not. We were talking about that yesterday. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. No, I'm not saying that's what I want, but some people are like, no, Carrie Lake. No, Carrie Lake is running for Senate. And she adds nothing to Trump's ticket other than she's would probably be great on a debate stage against like Kamala Harris, sure. But Trump hasn't debated. What makes you think there's going to be any debates during the presidential season? What makes you think that Kamala or Joe would dignify themselves? That's probably the way that they'll put it. So you know, she's a really good media mouthpiece, but she hasn't won a political race. She hasn't served in any sort of leadership position. She was a Democrat not too long ago. So I understand that she's part of like the MAGA sort of atmosphere. But Carrie Lake adds no benefit to a Trump ticket. None. Especially like appealing to independents and, you know, who you do need to support you. Like there's a cooked in base for the Democrats, cooked in base for Republicans. You need some of those independents. And there's just nothing to add there. Nikki Haley can add some of that appeal, and she will come with a lot of cash. I'm not saying you should pick Nikki Haley, but the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense. And so I mentioned that Jason Miller, who's with the Trump campaign, an advisor on the campaign, was asked about Nikki Haley, and they won't say no. I know Don Jr. is against it, and people have said different stuff, but things change. And we'll find out soon enough. He'll let us know soon enough. But if you feel that little sense of dread that it's going to be Nikki Haley, keep that tucked away because it might happen. Just a little forewarning. I could be totally wrong. I'm not predicting. I already said I don't like to predict because I don't like to be wrong. But I'm just telling you the rumors that are out there, and it doesn't seem crazy. I'm gonna call someone when I get off who might know, who might have heard. And I don't know. They might have to tell me under the condition that I don't let you guys know. But I'm gonna try to find out if that's the case. Call some people who's in the know, more in the know than I would know. So I do have some strings I can pull. Kristi Noem is a possibility, but there's things that Nikki would just add to his ticket that would amplify it, I think, in other ways that other people wouldn't. So fair warning that's a possibility. DeSantis has decided to stay in. Some people speculated that he was going to drop out, or reporting that he was going to drop out. Apparently he has enough cash to make it to like March. I think he's going to try to get it to like Super Tuesday. He obviously doesn't have momentum. He spent a lot of money, a lot of time, went to every county in Iowa, and Trump took them all. And Trump won with evangelicals. He won with just about every group, except for like 18 to 29. Those people went for DeSantis. And then Trump took like third with that group, but everyone else pretty much went for Trump. So what does that say? People have been saying this, and it's pretty obvious they still view Trump as the incumbent. People feel that he was cheated out of the election. They want him to get a second shot. They liked his policies, and they feel like other people might be fine, but it's still Trump's time. It's his last shot because he is up there in age. They still feel that he's with it or whatever, mentally and able to do the job. So everyone else can basically wait their turn. There's a I'm with him sort of. The pitch that Hillary made in 2016 is essentially like kind of Trump's pitch, and how people treat it. It's like it's just his time. Everyone else needs to wait. Um, and with the indictments, people feel like I've seen people on video and different interviews say stuff like this. I've seen many people say it online. I've heard people say this in person, that after the indictments started rolling in one after another, that people decided to support Trump. And they feel that way, I don't know, because they feel like, well, that's the one that they hate. They hate him the most. So they fear him the most because they're coming at him the most. They feel that it would be wrong to abandon him, because what does that say if they can basically force you to abandon him because of all the indictments and stuff? So they feel like they have to stick with him as a last stand situation. And the more that they attack him, the more people feel inclined to fight for him because they feel like he's fighting for them. So how do you break that? How do you break that? So Vivek talked a lot about how, I guess the past few days, how he felt that there was a trap brewing. But his idea of the trap was that they're not going to let him be the nominee. So you need to vote for, this was his pitch. We talked about this yesterday. They're going to stop him and they're going to replace him with a puppet, someone like a Nikki Haley or something. And so we want to stop that. So vote for me instead so I can continue the MAGA. That was an interesting way to go. And now he's now dropped out, and now he's saying that he is endorsing Trump and is going to do everything to support Trump and make sure he's a nominee, which he was pretty much doing that before. If we're going to be real, guys, it was just like the past few days, or leading up to the election, where he just kind of had this flip with these talking points that were kind of left field. But since he's made that pitch, to me, it doesn't make a ton of sense to go ahead and endorse him if you still think. Now, dropping out makes sense because he's like, I don't have a path. So my campaign is rooted in truth. So I might as well drop out because I don't have a path, which has been true for a minute, but he dropped out. Okay. But what he was saying, if he believed it, still remains, that Trump is going to be the front person, and if he really believes they're not going to let him be the front person and he's going to be replaced by a Nikki Haley, then, and he was telling people, if you vote for Trump, you are sending him to his demise. That's what he was telling voters. So now at this point, Vivek is like, yes, I will send him to his demise. I will help him go to his demise. So he either shouldn't have made that pitch, or he was lying when he made that pitch. I think there's some nuggets of truth to his pitch, though, but he said what he said. So if he was sincere in his pitch, then he should say that we need to stop the puppet situation and support DeSantis. Now, I don't know if he feels that DeSantis is a puppet either. So maybe it is what it is. So he might as well just try to support Trump. But you can't just go from, I guess you can. Technically he is. But I'm baffled because I'm like, you can't just go from saying, if we support Trump, we are sending him to his demise, to, oh yeah, let's all get behind him now, to quietly shove him to his demise. So anyway, Vivek is out. He did get 2 delegates. Nikki Haley got 7, DeSantis got 8, Trump got 19. Some people didn't know that it's not a winner take all state, but it is. It's not. It's not. It's proportionate or whatever. By the way, the caucusing started like at 7 o'clock, and by like 7:30 ish, people were already announcing that Trump had won, and people were crying foul about it. Now, I don't think any results would have changed as far as Trump being the winner if they hadn't, if they had waited to announce. Um, but seeing that it is not a winner take all situation with the state, I don't really think it was appropriate for them to announce it that early, which they based it not on votes being cast, but based on like entry polling coming in. That's how they based it. But AP, CNN, NBC News, like these organizations, it's their policy to not announce who wins until people have voted. So there's some contention. People found what happened to be unethical. Some people don't care because they're like, our guy was going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter. Who cares? And some of the media is just like, who cares? Like, we were right, weren't we? Well, if people were still like giving speeches and they get a Fox News alert that Trump already won, and you're the dope sitting there who's like, I'm here to talk about why we should vote for DeSantis, and it just seems like it could potentially suppress the vote, enthusiasm. A lot of people do like to support the person who has the momentum, is on the train to victory. And there were still votes to be cast, at least to fight for who was second, and how much margin Trump was going to win by wasn't quite solidified yet. And the delegate, again, it's not a winner take all situation. And it could it have changed like a one or two delegates? I don't know. But I'm like texting my friend from Iowa, asking her what's going on, and she's like, oh, we're she's telling me, oh, we did a pledge, oh, we did a prayer, which she had caucused for Hillary in the past, and she's technically an independent, so this is her first Republican caucus that she's gone to. And she couldn't remember doing a pledge and a prayer when the Democrats had a caucus. And she's like, I'm not saying we didn't, I just don't remember it. And I'm like, no, Republicans, they always do prayers and pledges. We'll even do that like at a picnic, like not even like a meeting or something. Republicans always do prayers and pledges. When I went undercover to like a Democrat picnic and stuff, there wasn't any prayers or pledges or anything like that, which I thought was interesting. I didn't see a lot of patriotic stuff going on at all either when I went there, which is like, just there was just a different atmosphere. People were nice enough, in general. But it was something that I noticed. But she was texting me, and she's like, okay, we started counting our votes. And then I saw on Twitter, I'm like, they already announced who won? And I'm like, looking at like, wait, this is a tweet from like 20 minutes ago. I'm like, Trump already won. and she's like, yeah, people are sending me like announcements, but in like her friends from different caucuses were sending her stuff, and they are of their vote tallies and stuff, but they were still nominating, they were still voting and stuff. So I wasn't fond of that. People have claimed that it's happened before. I don't know. I'd have to look back into that, but then I think the network should have probably just went with their initial sort of waiting until all the voting is done. But it is what it is. Trump is they're going on to New Hampshire. DeSantis is probably going to spend more of his time in South Carolina. He's in single digits in in New Hampshire. I don't think he's going to have some miraculous turnaround. Trump is probably going to win New Hampshire and probably South Carolina. And it is what it is. I don't know what other states DeSantis could potentially do really well in, or anyone else. Like, I'm from Michigan. I don't foresee anyone but Trump winning in Michigan. And they've also it's like they've also kind of changed our um election a bit too, so it favors Trump more. And Trump has been working with state parties or people within power or within different states to change the different rules that to favor him more in these primaries. So Trump has been using his connections for a while to win this thing. And DeSantis, great record, amazing record. Everyone thinks he was a great governor, etc. Blah blah blah. Always the underdog. Trump has just had his finger on the pulse of power for a long time, and people say that we got to fight the establishment. We got to fight the establishment, guys. Guys, Trump kind of is the establishment at this point. He kind of is the establishment. He has a firm grip on the Republican Party, and he has for a minute. And people rate whether you are a rhino not on your policies so much anymore. It's about how much do you support Trump, or how much, or whether you believe the election was stolen and stuff like that, not how pro-life you are. Donald Trump is basically at a point where he's saying he'll make a deal with Democrats. He might be at the point where he would be willing to allow like 99% of abortions to occur. That's the gist that I get when he talks about the subject now. Because if he's willing to make a deal, I don't know. He won't say if at 15 weeks. He won't go earlier than 15 weeks. In the past, he signaled like 20 weeks or whatever. And he still has exceptions for like sexual assault and stuff. So like 90, only like 1% of abortions, like, or 1.3 or something, happen like after 21 weeks. So Trump, are you really pro-life if you think 99% of abortions should be allowed? So he has a firm grip on the party, and has for a minute. In Michigan, our whole entire ticket in the midterms was pretty much determined by Trump, and it went down in amazing flames. And our state party is also in shambles. So but our Secretary of State candidate was selected because she said the election was stolen. No experience at all. But she was at the TCF Center, and she went around a lot talking about it, announced, and Trump, made her the candidate, basically. The delegates got around her at convention because he is very favorable, and she said the things that people wanted to hear. And that was the talking point, basically. I mean, she talked about other things, but just an example, like he has a firm grip. So you got a lot of grassroots people who still really love him, absolutely, but Lindsey Graham types and all those folks are in his pocket and wheelhouse and stuff too. So it's very much still a Trump party. And according to Iowa, the only people who are kind of looking a different route are the younger generation. And there's not enough of them. So I don't know if anyone else in the comments is pro anyone else, but it just kind of looks like he's inevitable, like Thanos at this point. I mean, I guess Thanos did eventually lose, but yeah. Now, does DeSantis have any other path? I don't know how. Again, I don't know where he can win at. People have criticized his campaign a lot. I think a lot of the criticisms for his campaign, though, are a little overhyped because I do think there's other campaigns make ridiculous, terrible mistakes, but it's like people act like DeSantis is the worst. People say like, "Oh, his influencers are the worst." I'm like, because, and I'm not really aware that they really paid any influencers at all, but or the people who they claim are paid, I don't think are, some of them aren't paid anyway, but um I some of this, they complain about how mean they are online, and then I see Trump influencers. I'm like, this these people aren't being honest. Some of the stuff that the Trump pro people say are just awful. And if you look at the stuff that Trump himself says, or the stuff that Trump will retweet or retruth or whatever, you can't say that you don't want to vote for DeSantis over mean tweets, or not even mean tweets that DeSantis is saying that people who like him are saying, and then just totally ignore what the Trump influencers saying or Trump himself. So that's not a great criticism, or one that I feel is pretty honest. Like if you like Trump, you just like Trump. Like let's just be blunt. Like you don't have to find reasons to rag on DeSantis or whatever. You like who you like. You know. Um, I've heard of missteps like going to like planning an event where there is a big event like this one day in this town, in this state, and it kind of rubbing folks the wrong way. Like I've heard about like break like taboos like that happening with the campaign, boo-boos like that, right? But I don't think his campaign was some kind of hot mess is going to go down in history as the worst thing that's ever happened, like some people are saying. I think Trump is just a really unique situation. You could say he should have never got in or whatever. It was always a risk. But I don't know. People do deserve a choice, and if people want to run, they can run, and that's just kind of what it is. He had a right to do it. He's the right to still be in there if he wants to. If people still want to give to him, that's their prerogative. But I don't think it was just like horrible campaign. Should he have done like more interviews earlier? I think so. But he does do good interviews. Um, he's really good, even talking to the media who opposes him and stuff. It's just on the debate stages he's kind of unnatural, but not terrible. But he's not as good as he is in the interviews. Um, People have said that he should have been nicer to Trump to court some more of his supporters. I don't think that was going to work. Um, I guess people said he could have had more of a Vivek approach. Well, Vivek got 7%, 7 or 8%, something like that, and it just wasn't going to work that way. Like if you're going to be the because people kept asking, okay, does Vivek is in the race? He keeps saying that Trump is the best president of his lifetime, and you're not saying negative stuff about him. So why are you in the race? Just because you're younger? Like people have said they don't care. People said they don't care. If people don't care about some of the policy stuff, promises he didn't keep, or positions he's trying to change on, some pretty serious positions, like the pro-life one, for example. They're not gonna be like, oh yeah, we should abandon Trump just because you're younger. People have told you they don't care. That it's very important that he wins this because it's his last shot because he's so old. So DeSantis going the Vivek route, I don't think would have worked. So people have said that he needs to be harder, go harder at Trump, and he should have. And maybe it depends how, because people are like, oh, he came in and he was just like, I'm Trump without the baggage. Now his campaign has been more complex than that. He's been saying Trump said he'd do these things. He said he'd build a wall. He did not build the wall. He was saying that Trump claimed the wall that Mexico would pay for it. And now he's saying he could have never got them to do it. So he's talking about broken promises and how DeSantis keeps his promises, etc. But if you're talking to someone who's like, yeah, but in the end, I still liked him. I think he did a good job, and I think he was screwed. Um, but I think the biggest psychology that DeSantis would have to break through, if he had any kind of chance at all, would be to go harder. But it wouldn't be a policy thing. People acknowledge that he's a good governor. Even Nikki Haley was going at him at the debate. They asked him, we'll say something nice about someone. And DeSantis said like he like used up his time. And Nikki Haley was like, he was a good governor. She was, if you didn't see their debate, it was crazy. She had an attitude. Oh, it was chilly in that room. So everyone acknowledges he's a good governor. He did the right thing during COVID, etc. Blah blah blah. Right. So it's not really about policy comparison to policies, other stuff like that. I think DeSantis would have to dismantle this idea that people have that makes him so protective to Trump. And the idea is that, yes, there's all this baggage that he has. Yes, he has these indictments. Yes, people are coming at him. Yes, it will take up time on the campaign trail. Yes, it's eating finances because people give him money and he uses that for his legal bills. But it should go toward his legal bills because how dare they even put him in this situation? We have to fight for Trump because Trump has fought for us, etc. The only way for DeSantis to probably chip away some more votes is to break that image of Trump being that person fighting for everybody. And I don't know if he can do that. And the how hard he'd have to go, it would make so many people so angry. And I don't know if it would be worth reward. And it would do damage to the general. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to I don't know, to kneecap Republicans eventually, if you, because you could maybe take off a chunk of his support, but would it be enough to get you the nomination in the end? And if it's not, and Trump is still the nominee, and you've done some damage to the point where people kind of feel disillusioned, they don't want to support him at all, you just helped Biden, right? So the route that he'd have to go, is it going to be profitable in the end for him to go that route? And you might be like, what is she even talking about? Let me give you an example. If you've been with me for a while, you've probably heard me complain about this. In Michigan, 16 electors were charged, Trump's electors. There are alternate electors. He did to different states. To be like alternate slate of electors. So if it was contested and they're like, oh, actually Trump won the state. By the way, here's a list of electors who were selected for Trump, because on election day, we actually like don't cast our ballots. We cast our ballots, but the people who actually like cast the votes for the person who wins is the Electoral College. And so if Republicans win, like in 2016, Trump won. So his slate of electors had like a special ceremony where they cast their votes and stuff. So I was in the running to be one of the electors, but I ended up losing. But I was there that day when they had the ceremony. So Biden in 2020, his electors were the ones who had the ceremony. Trump's electors weren't able to do that. But they tried to go in the legislature to do a ceremony or whatever, and they're like, no, you can't come in here. So they went to the Michigan Republican Party, which is like 5 minutes from the Capitol, and they went and they like signed a paper or whatever. And so our attorney general decided to charge them all for that. One of them, they gave a deal because one of the people, I think the person they gave a deal to was an alternative person, an alternate. And so they're all going through court proceedings, and they're doing it pretty much alone. There was, like a fundraiser for them, and there were some pro-Trump people who came to, like, on the telethon or whatever. But Trump hasn't helped them, and that really bothers me. And I know maybe about half the people. Some of them I know very well, and it really bothers me that he hasn't helped them, hasn't said much about them. And it really bothers me because I know that his lawyers told him the plan wouldn't work, that his lawyers said it was a bad idea. And that the challenges that Trump was having, that he'd have to, like, just basically hit them all out of the ballpark, and that it was unlikely to succeed. But he wanted to do it anyway. And there was someone who was, like, involved with collecting the electors, I think in Georgia. And once he found out what the lawyers were saying to Trump's team, he was like, "Oh, I would have never been involved if I had known that." So his people, Jason Miller, etc., they testified to this during the January 6th stuff. So these interviews are out there with them admitting this, but many Republicans didn't really pay much attention to the January 6th stuff, because, like, the committee stuff, because they said, more of the same. They're just coming for Trump, trying to exaggerate stuff, etc., blah blah blah. Like, we just kind of checked out of it. I think the conservative media as a whole. Like, I remember Ben was like, "Well, the Democrats, haven't really changed their mind. Republicans have really changed their mind." I don't know how many Republicans looked at it seriously. So I don't know how many people know that they were, like, telling them that's not a good idea. Now, there's some precedents, with a case in, like, Hawaii and stuff, but the circumstances aren't really the same. And anyway, it's a bad situation, and it's been pretty heartbreaking. From my side, my perspective, and I can't even imagine how some of the people I know in the situation are feeling. I mean, I've heard, and I've talked to them, and I've heard them crying on the phone. I've cried with them. So this perspective of, Trump always being that person, it's a little chip that image is damaged for me. So and there's some people with the Jan 6 stuff that I don't know, maybe would feel that way too. But I saw a CNN, I think it was a CNN interview. They interviewed a woman who was going to jail, and she still was, like, on the Trump train, like, fiercely. So I don't know if it's even possible to sort of break the bond that people have. So I don't really see DeSantis being able to go the route that he could to win the primary. Not saying he should drop out, because I do think that you just never know what's going to happen. So, it doesn't hurt. I mean, but it costs money. But if people want to give it, that's their prerogative. It's their prerogative. As far as Nikki Haley's path, I don't think she has much of a path either. But I'm not unconvinced that she'll be his VP. I'm not unconvinced of that. Someone said Haley is toxic. Some people are like, he would never pick Haley. He would never pick Haley. Trump has had some interesting picks. So I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know who his pick is going to be. He's going to have to, usually when people pick their VPs, it's someone who's going to boost and help the ticket in some kind of way. When Trump picked Pence in 2016, people were concerned about, was Trump actually conservative? He got someone who was pretty solid conservative, who had governing experience and stuff with Mike Pence, so people felt more solid about it. So when Obama picked Joe Biden, Obama was kind of fresh on the scene. Joe Biden had, been there forever. you know, and you know, with Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris, he had said so many racist things on the campaign trail that people made demands of him that he had to pick a woman of color. That's what happened with Joe Biden, because he did announce that he was going to pick a woman. At first, it was just a woman. That was his promise. And so I maybe Amy Klobuchar and other people thought like maybe it was going to be them or something like that. I don't know. But Gretchen Whitmer totally thought that was going to be her. So there was these names or whatever floating around. But after like the you ain't black thing, the with on the Breakfast Club, the unlike the African American community, the Hispanic community has incredibly diverse thoughts. After he kept saying stuff like that, there was a group letter from different black people. Charlemagne is one. Charlemagne signed it. I can't remember who else was who signed the letter. Charlemagne's from the Breakfast Club. They signed a collective letter saying, if you want our support, you need to pick a woman of color. So Kamala Harris, who tried to run for president, obviously didn't work out for her. She bombed pretty incredibly. Tulsi Gabbard like chopped her down, but she just was pretty insufferable. He ended up picking Kamala Harris. Now I think there are other black women with less baggage who still wouldn't have been good, in my opinion, that but probably would have been better than Kamala. But they're both sitting in the White House. But obviously Kamala Harris is special. Just a special little person. When she just gives such horrible interviews and isn't I don't know, she would be, she'd get that clip like when she was in the Senate, they'd have, they'd be on the different committees. She'd ask her questions going in, and it would dice a little bit. They do the grandstanding, and she'd have some viral moments. But as the VP, she just it's too much sunlight. It's too much spotlight for her. She can't handle it. So she's not great. But like, seriously, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, that situation, because he said a bunch of racist stuff and people didn't like his policies that, disproportionately ended up impacting like the black community and stuff. And that was basically their gun to his head moment, that you have to pick a woman of color, and he did. So that's how she ended up in the White House. So anyway, people pick VPs that are going to elevate their ticket in some kind of way for electoral advantage. So people who want Tucker Carlson, not going to happen. People who want Kari Lake, not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's a bad move. It's a bad move. And if he does it, he's going to lessen his chances of victory. And again, Kari Lake is running for Senate. She's in that position. Trump wants her in that position, running for Senate. So why would he pick her for VP? So again, don't be surprised if it's Nikki Haley. Don't be surprised if it's Nikki Haley. It could be Noam, though. It could be Noam. But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Um, so yeah, we'll continue to see where that goes, but that's pretty much the thoughts I wanted to get out today about the reaction to it. Um, Someone said I wouldn't be surprised if Trump. Let me just pull it up on screen if you don't mind. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump picks Nikki, but I hope he doesn't. I didn't have a very strong opinion of her during the previous runs, but this time around, she's been very disappointing. I went back the first time I noticed Nikki Haley was she gave like the State of a Union Republican reply, and in my mind, I remembered at the time there was like a swipe at Trump. Like that's how the media was like interpreting her response. And so I went back to see if what she had said, and there was just the only thing I can think of that would have applied to Trump was like there's something about loud voices or whatever. When there's loud voices, we can't hear so good or understand so good or something along those lines. So it wasn't like really bashing, but people like interpreted that kind of way. And I think people were kind of positioning it as um we need a rising kind of star, like people like her should be like the future of the party, and Trump is like this is a, a failed way, like we can't afford to go this route, like kind um but of course he made history. So and Trump ended up picking Haley for as UN ambassador, and she's been on this trajectory to try to get to this presidency. My sister I was talking to my sister about Nikki Haley. I'm like, I don't know what her background is much, prior to her um, really being governor and stuff. Like and so the first time she came on the scene, that was really, or that I noticed her anyway. And my sister was like, well, they'll set up different people to kind of be the person. That happens everywhere, but she says it's particularly like that in the South, where they'll have their someone in mind and they're just kind of shot forward. And she's like, maybe Nikki Haley is just kind of that person, but I don't think that she'll quite get there with president. Um, but I think on paper, as far as names floating around, that she kind of seems like she makes the most sense for him. She kind of makes the most sense for him. And people are like, Trump doesn't like traitors, and so she has done nothing worse to him than she said and done to her. So they'll get over it. He'll get over it, and he'll make everyone else get over it. He'll make his influencers and everyone get on board. And there's a lot of us who'll be like, I don't like this. Um, but I don't know. I'm sure they feel like everyone will just get on board and get in line. So I don't know. It's still a rumor, guys. It's still a rumor. But I haven't heard a name that floating around that I think makes more sense. Now, I'm not saying that there's not other people who don't make sense. Um, could be another governor somewhere. Um, hmm, sorry, I was looking at the comments. Looks like you guys are talking to each other, but I just want to be surprised. Anyway, before I let you guys go, I just want to tell the story a little bit. So I was on a TikTok live yesterday. I was just listening for a little bit, and there's these pro-lifers arguing with these pro-choice people, and some of the pro-life people who debate, they're kind of young, not super young, but like maybe in their 20s, early 30s and stuff. They'll hear on TikTok. They're just very matter of factly, but snippy, sarcastic, sometimes condescending. And it's not everybody, but there's a group that'll be in my algorithm, and they're but they're probably frustrated with some of the people that come on though, because they this so anyway, um the woman was like, I would never have an abortion, but I'm, pro-choice. And she said that she had kids herself, but she's pro-choice and she would want, her daughter to not have that right taken away, etc. Blah blah blah. And so the pro-life person was like, when does life begin? Like when a child is in the womb, like, is it alive? And they're like, well, yeah, well, she said abortion, it's not killing anyone. It was like, well, is it alive? And like, well, yeah, it's alive, but you like it's kind of like a chicken egg. Like if you eat a chicken egg, like, and the yolk comes out, like, that's what it's like. So I'm listening and just amazed. And people make the comparison to the chicken egg and all that stuff. But this was not a child. She was a grown woman and older than the person that she's probably debating, I would assume. And she said she had her own kids. So at, at what point of time did she think when she was pregnant that if she had cracked open I don't know, her uterus and yolk would have just spilled out of her? I just I was like hollering, like, listen to it, just and the person was like, she's like, do you eat chicken eggs? And she's like, are you talking about non-fertilized eggs, non-fertilized? And they just kind of like, it wouldn't matter anyway. I'm not advocating for chickens. I'm advocating for humans, and I eat chickens. I don't care about animals. That's what she said. She's like, can we get back to abortion? But then, like, there was another pro-choice person who tried to like explain her position, but it also seemed like she didn't understand um fertilized chicken eggs and etc. So I there's people who definitely argue and are pro-choice and are like, the baby's alive, knows it's a baby, etc. Blah blah blah, and they're like, fetus the fetus, kill it, etc. Um, but there are people who amaze me about how much they don't know. But you know what? Those are the kind of people who see propaganda. There was this big thing that happened last year where this network was like, pro-abortion network or whatever, was sharing these images on their website, and people were passing around Instagram and TikTok and so on, and they were claiming, let me see if I can pull it up really quick, of they were claiming that this tissue substance or whatever was what a baby actually looked like at like 9 weeks of um and so people are like, oh, this is what you guys want to save, and this isn't really alive. But the thing about the photo, they had removed the well, the fetus was like destroyed. Like, how did it end up in a petri dish, bruh? Like, they sucked it up, they cleaned out the blood and stuff, and so it's basically just this. It's a sack. So that got around. It was big propaganda last year, and people were still sharing it. People were still sharing it. So there's this girl Jessica who's a pro-abortionist. I found it. Valenti. Um I'm like, y'all still lying about this? They're still lying about this. As a matter of fact, Michael Knowles had this one pro-abortion person on his account, on his show, and they had like, I don't know, 2.5 hour conversation. Her name was like Dante Bronco or something. Dante, it was something like that. And at one point she like pulled out a photo of that and was like, this is what it actually looks like. And she's a medical student sharing that propaganda. And Michael Knowles was like, what you're doing, he's like, how did the baby get in the petri dish? He's like, what you're doing is like, if someone had like blown the brains out of like an Italian kid on the street or something, and they were unrecognizable, and you showed a photo and like, this is what an Italian child looks like. That's essentially what you're doing. So this is what they're trying to say, that a a pregnancy / abortion looks like at 8 weeks. Women have miscarried babies, and they're visible to the eye. and they look like like a teeny tiny alien kind of human looking child, but it, it's not the cutest looking thing in the world, but still human and not just a glob of tissue or a sack that's been rinsed of blood and everything. So they're still pushing this kind of propaganda. So perhaps the person who compared a baby in the womb to, like, if you cracked open an egg and yolk just spills out, maybe this is the kind of stuff that informs that opinion. But man, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. But she said the thing about the yolk, man. I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know what to tell you guys. Those people vote. Those people vote. They vote, and I'd be concerned. Anyway, thank you guys for hearing me ramble today. Some of my thoughts, but go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website. It does cost a stream around my site and all that, email and all that stuff, so you guys can support. I appreciate it. Check out different merch that I have available on the website. I still got Trump merch. It looks like it's gonna be good at least till November, because he's like dominated the debate and stuff. So I did mention that Joe Biden said some racist stuff, and that's why he had to pay with Kamala Harris. And so I got this announced white supremacy defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list on the back of some of his racist stuff that he said and done on there. So that's a fun one. There's a long sleeve version too, and I got other shirts and mugs and stuff you guys can check out. There's this one that I voted for President Trump, and all I got was like historic peace deals, and there's gas under $2, a tax cut, no new wars, etc. And this lousy t-shirt. So that's still available at blacktnews.com. I do also have like some mugshot stuff, but I don't have any pictures here loaded up in the queue. So anyway, go to the website. Plenty of stuff to view. If you want to learn more about my books, you could also find that out on the merchandise page. Again, thank you guys for being with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.